All right, everyone. Welcome to episode 20 of No One Asked Us. Today you have me instead of Andrew doing the kickoff here. Andrew is in the Acoma conference, so anybody there, hit him up for sure. But today's guest is Bill Mitchell of LoanPass. And Bill, your bio is coming straight from ChatGPT, so I am going to be reading that, and then you're going to tell us how we did, okay?
Okay.
All right, today's guest is Bill Mitchell, CRO and EVP of Sales at LoanPass, the fintech that's reimagining how lenders price and decision loans. Bill's a SaaS sales leader with 20 plus years of experience driving growth everywhere from startups to Fortune 500s. At LoanPass, he's on a mission to replace clunky legacy systems with modern tech that actually works. He's also a recognized industry trailblazer. Literally, he's won the Trailblazer Award, a frequent speaker on all things digital lending, and someone who somehow makes loan decisioning sound exciting. In short, if you care about the future of lending, you'll want to hear what Bill has to say. What do you
I, I
think,
want
Bill?
to I want to add on there, by the way, he is also an Iron Man. So
Oh
we should
wow!
add that.
Yeah.
An-
Yeah. A few,
Another
few
note.
times over. So, yeah, thank you. Yeah. That was pretty good, actually. And
There you go.
appreciate that intro, Chris.
Well, ChatGPT did all that, and I already told ChatGPT just now. How come you didn't find out he was an Iron Man? Hey, great catch. So, if you like, I put together a few questions about his Iron Man experience.
Happy to talk about it. I actually
How many?
I did a podcast about 6 months ago with a guy who's based in Hawaii, and I think half of the conversation was about marathons and Ironman and how the discipline can apply to your work world, to your work life, everything. So
How
happy to
many
talk
have you
about
done,
it.
Bill?
I'll follow your
How many you
lead.
got under your? How many Ironmans you got under your belt?
Four fulls
Four
and
fulls.
a
Nice.
dozen halves, and then about 40 triathlons overall.
Oh,
Got into it in 2006 or seven on a bet. A couple of us were sitting around a fire having a few beers, and one of our buddies had done one. So it's like, all right, let's do this. So before you know it, we were doing sprints, we were doing international distance. It led to halves, and then before you know it, I was in Lake Placid, Arizona, Texas, Florida, all over the place, trying to make it to Hawaii, but didn't get there.
and I think
Wow.
you and I talked about this. Florida, in my opinion, is the most brutal because it's just flat, like for the bike ride. Like it's just,
Yeah.
and then you have the jellyfish and the swim. I heard.
Yeah, I've been stung a few times. The worst
Yeah.
was probably right there above my eye. So the swim cap is to here. The goggles are right there. I got stung, came out of the water with a big welt, and
Oh no!
so this
That's
too shall
awful.
pass, and you just keep running, right? You keep putting one foot in front of the other.
Well,
Andrew,
so
have you done an Iron Man?
I did. I can't claim that title anymore. I did the Madison, Wisconsin Ironman in 2008. And then I had my second kid and decided to switch to ultra marathons because that was less time training. But my last ultra marathon was right. Let's see, that'd have been like 2010, 2011. So, and then
Okay, I
then
guess I got to sign up for one of these things.
I got to get locked in. My 13-year-old is now asking me. He says he wants to do a 50 miler with me. So I guess I got to get the shoes back on, get at it.
That's,
Nice.
that's awesome. Yeah, I forgot you had mentioned that to me in the past. So 50 or like 100, were you doing like the century runs?
50. I never got 100 under my belt. The most brutal one I ever did was the Leadville 50. The
Yeah.
start line is at 10,000 feet. And you go over two 12,000-foot mountains twice.
Hmm.
Sheesh.
So it's an out and back. It's brutal. So I think it was like 13 and a half hours.
Yeah.
But you
Is
did
what it
it?
ended up taking. Yeah, I finished. I got under it's a 14-hour cutoff.
Yeah.
And I was like, they will have to pull my cold dead body off this trail. There's like no way I was not finishing it.
Yeah, that's
So
that's
Okay.
that's awesome. Like so, Ironman Lake Placid is right there, and so it was my second one. I did Florida first in '09, and then I'm in Lake Placid because I grew up in New England, and back in the '80s, if you guys can remember, you look back to like Miracle on Ice, and when the Olympics were back there, we could see the lights of Olympic Mountain from where I grew up in Vermont. So it's like, I'm going to go back there someday. I'm going to do it. I set a personal goal of going under 13 hours. So being a Florida guy now, and everything's flat, to your point, we would train. We go to Bridges where the hills are here. So I go up there. Long story short is my watch dies. It's like, I'm not going to make the cutoff. So mile 25 of the marathon, I'm coming around. You start to hear the music of Olympic Center. And there was a few pros that had obviously finished hours before me, and they were making margaritas. So, but the blender was hooked up to the chain ring, and that's how they were grinding the ice. So I had stopped. I had stopped for a margarita, spent a few minutes, and then anyway, long story short, I ran the last mile. I felt great with the sugar high, and 13 hours, 20 seconds.
There you go. That's awesome.
I stopped for the drink. It paid off, and it was a good day.
Okay, so Bill, outside Ironman, so we always joke on this, like no, little kid grows up going, I really want to be in mortgage tech. So actually that was a joke on one of the panels yesterday. They were talking about the shortage of appraisers. And they were like, no kid ever grows up being like, I'm going to be an appraiser, right? Like, that's probably why there's a shortage of them. So how did you end up in the mortgage space and in the mortgage tech space in specific?
Yeah. Good question. Thank you. So it's all right. It's going back. It's early 90s. And I had a few random jobs. I was going to school, and I really hadn't figured out what I wanted to do yet. So my father, who had recently retired from the police force of 18 years in a small town in New Hampshire, we were now living about 2 hours north up in Vermont. And so he gave me the opportunity to go work for him. And what he had created is an advertising company. But you guys remember the big yellow phone books, right? You could prop the door open, a window open with it, right? So you'd open it up anyway, and there'd be 1,000 businesses. So my dad took and created a business called the Phone Card. And it was really going into all the small towns across New England and going to one beautician, one pizza place, one plumber, and creating a premium, and then basically putting a magnet on it with fire, police, ambulance, local school information. And people started putting that on their refrigerator. Well, it took off. So, Dad, you're building this company. You're doing great. I'm going to come work for you. So he gives me a territory back where we grew up. And so I spent the first 2 weeks, and I hit the wall. And I what the hell am I doing wrong? And 2 weeks of getting no's. So one day I'm driving, and I go back to where I played with my first baseball games. My dad was a coach in T-ball. And I go and I drive out and just picture a late summer day, early fall day. You got this old field that hasn't been mowed in a while. And I go out on the pitcher's mound and just kind of look to the skies like, Lord, what am I doing? And so anyway, had a moment. And then on the way back, I stop in town, and I go over to the phone booth. All right. We didn't have cell phones, of course. I go over to the phone booth, and I call home. I said, I'm going to be home late. And I'm going to make a few more calls to see if I can make this happen. So just like out of a scene of Glengarry Glen Ross, I walk into this building, go up the stairs, this old building, and it's an insurance company, and go to the front desk. And it's like, I'm here to talk about the phone card and see if anyone's available. And so they ring me in, I go through the door, and I open it up, and there's 15 guys sitting there smoking cigarettes. It's like a regional meeting. And the CEO at the end of the table says, all right, son, give us your best pitch. And so I proceeded, and I felt like I was stumbling over myself. And then I kid you not, he says, do you realize your father arrested my son? And I wasn't expecting that. So he goes, well, thank you. And thank your dad. He goes, my son turned out great. And he goes, yeah, we'll sign up. And he says, not only for this one, but we want to have 100-mile radius on the other phone cards. So to answer your question about mortgage, that's really, I figured out I wanted to be in sales. And it kind of grew and grew. And then years later, I worked for Frito-Lay. I was a district manager. I transferred down. I had 25 guys that were reporting to me here in Florida. And this is where I get into mortgage. So my wife, Jennifer, is temping for Aquin Financial, working right for the CFO. They invite me to a cocktail reception where I go, didn't know anyone, and just started talking about sales and logistics, and I didn't know who the gentleman was, but he turned out to be the CEO and chairman. And he goes, son, he goes, I'd like you to come over to my office next Saturday and talk about your career. And I said, I'm all set. I'm playing golf, and I've got a good career in Frito. And he says, no, seriously, come on over. So long story short, that's how I got into mortgage. I went over the following Saturday, sat down with them, and they literally put me on the help desk, taking calls from staff. So that's my story on how I got into mortgage.
I think there's an incredibly important point for anybody who's watching this is just have conversations with people, just talking to strangers with no intent. You never know who you're going to end up having a conversation with. I think that's such a great story, right? Because you're just talking to the guy, you have no clue who he is, and the fact that it turns out to be the CEO, the perfect person to talk to about that.
Yeah.
So tell everybody, everybody out there, more than likely anybody watching this knows what a PPE is. But if you could talk about LoanPass and what you guys are solving for, and obviously, you're not the only one out there in the space, but I know you guys are doing some different things, and sort of, where your expertise lie and what you guys are doing different within the space.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So it's 2022, and we had just wrapped up the sale of Reverse Vision to Constellation. So I had taken a little time off, and I had planned on taking 6 months off. I have never done this before. And 30 days later, I'm in Las Vegas at the NBA Technology, connecting with friends and, doing the t-shirt and jeans sort of thing versus the suit and tie of the past. And so I ran into LoanPass. And so in 2022, they really started getting going, and they were looking to build and have built a rules-based decisioning engine that can handle any asset class. So if you think about how one should be categorically different, the PPE space is flooded. We all know who the players are, and there's some really good pioneers out there. Larry Huff, he's a great guy, former mentor of mine. I actually reported to him at DataTrack for a short time. But when I saw what we were doing over here, it was really a focus on non-QM. It was going to be a focus on business purpose lending and being able to handle all these different types of loan types. And because, again, the Pioneer PPEs do a great job, conventional and agency and all that over the years, but you really don't have a pricing engine that did well in that space. So I met the guys, Mike Lewis, our president. He just happens to be in Denver, Andrew. And that's where you are, right?
Yeah, it is. And I'm realizing now that I have not replied to his email.
So
sorry, Mike.
And then Derek Long, our COO, is Anchorage, Alaska. He's moving to Austin here soon. Derek was the founder and president of Lender eSource, which is a company that actually ended up selling off to Allrex. So, and then Dave Gorsuch, our CTO, is part of the leadership team over here. I met the guys, and Dave spent time with Loan Depot. He was an early engineer with PayPal. So we're the group that collectively comes together and reports to Bill Roy. And Bill Roy's vision, CEO and founder, was to have that pricing engine, decisioning engine that could handle any asset class, focus on non-QM, do it well. And that's really where the early start was with one of our first clients in Lenshore out of San Diego.
There you go.
Fascinating. I didn't know you guys had a bunch of heavy hitters.
We do now. It's taken some time, and it's a grind where our founder, Bill, he mentioned he wanted to grow this company organically. He wasn't in a big rush, in 19, 20, 21, before I got here. And the guys wanted to make sure that they stood up a dozen clients before they hired someone in sales, yours truly. And they wanted to make sure they were there. And sure enough, that has grown to now over 50 customers. So we do have some heavy hitters that from clients in that perspective, where early numbers, not official, but based on our customer base for like the business purpose lending arena, that space, we're about 30% of the volume that's running through LoanPass now. In the non-QM space, early numbers, again, not official, but based on who they are and the volume that they're running, we feel that we're somewhere between 20 and 24%. And so again, organically is all about growing word of mouth, doing it right. And so it's, you may see LoanPass a little bit in social media. You've seen us at conferences here and there. It's not a big push as of yet. It will be as we go forward, but we're in a really good place right now. And where the engine is going, and so it wasn't easy, PK, right? So we need to have table stakes. So my first question to the guys when I saw them in Vegas at the tech was, all right, do we have log management? Do we have pipeline management? Do we have historical pricing? Do we have an integration in Encompass? So all the table stake functionality needed to be put in play, the ecosystem, if you will, where we have integrations to the leading loan origination systems, point of sales, open APIs that allow lenders to take the data and push and pull as needed. So there's a lot of flexibility with the engine as well.
Also, Bill, I know we maybe jammed about this, I think, a few months ago, but part of your value prop, especially in like that commercial space, is the way it used to happen is like a commercial broker or loan officer would send a package of details, and then it would take maybe 24 hours, 48 hours to actually price a loan and get back to that loan officer.
Yeah.
But what you guys are doing is standardizing that space so that you could reduce the turn time on pricing a loan scenario, and ultimately help them make more money, and help every part of that, I guess, like supply chain, be more efficient, make more money, reduce kind of like waste of time and money that goes in there. Is that right?
Absolutely, yeah. So if for a couple examples, we all know how pricing engines work in the conventional space and all of that. But as we learned, like I was the new guy, like Andrew were talking before, I was the new guy in some of these business purpose lending events where, I could go to go to an IMB or something else and you shake 500 hands. I would be walking into these rooms of like 50 thought leaders. They're all very focused on what they do. And they have what's called sizers. And these are really Excel sheets on steroids, I call it. Some of them are really good, to credit to what they built. Absolutely. But what we have been able to do now is standardize that in the business purpose lending space, because it's not about price for them. It's about deal structure and how quickly that they can get there. And there's a term that one of the CEOs at Austin said. He goes, Bill, this is fantastic. He goes, when I'm on the phone with an investor, you think of DSCR loan, closing an investor name. He goes, it's fly or buy. He goes, I need to be able to size that deal up, hence sizer, size that deal up and share it with them. So now they can go through using LoanPass, have it on screen, do some comparisons, price it out, and then literally email, whether it's the lot confirmation or a deal term sheet, you name it, email it out to that buyer to make that decision.
So in that space, it's a huge competitive advantage.
Yeah. We, excuse me, so in the first couple of years, being 23, 24 now, and all the business purpose lenders that have signed on with us, many of them have said, if you think about the example of the broker reaches out and working with a bunch of wholesale lenders, some of them are saying it's taking 4, 6, 8 hours for us to put a deal together because they're literally old school and picking up the phone, going online, trying to structure that deal. Where one of the guys said, I'm basically going to be able to double my volume, not add any staff, and I'm going to structure this deal literally in 5 minutes.
What's the key to that, Bill? Like, is it just, is it more data points? Is it sucking in documentation, or how is it? What's the differentiating factor there versus like an OB? You mentioned Larry, so we'll pick on his old guy.
Yeah, he's great. I love Larry. He's great.
I was Optimal Blue customer number 3, I think, when I was 17 years old. So anyway, So what are you guys doing differently to make that process so smooth?
The design of the pricing engine, the decisioning engine, is to be highly configurable. So if it's a bridge loan, and there's certain questions that need to be addressed, data points that need to be addressed to get to the results, to do those comparisons. If it's a fix and flip, after repair value based on certain markets, so we're able to configure the pricing engine, based on the loan type that's selected, and bring that up. So if you think about some of the pioneer pricing engines, and again, I speak positively of them because they've grown, but you have your screen, and it's almost like a form, and you're tabbing through 17 fields that they started with 17 years ago. And With us, it's a little bit different. It's more of a vertical look where, okay, it's a bridge. I need these configured fields. If it's a fix and flip, I need these. If it's DSCR, I'm going to need this. So it's not like you're scrolling through a laundry list of data points. It's configured in such a way based on the loan product and then the investor you're delivering to. And we do that during implementation. And we do 90 to 95% of the setup for our clients, which we take that burden off them.
I would say this could be the point of sizing. So it's a point of sale, but it's like it's giving you a journey as you fill it out to get more data points input there.
Yeah, well said. It's like you're telling the story.
I've seen it, and it's really impressive because and this is an oversimplification, but it's almost like a Lego set when I kind of think about it, right? Because you have the ability to go in and tell me where I'm wrong here, Bill, but you can create all of your own fields and all of your own, rules based. So if you do have, you mentioned the Excel spreadsheets, right? Like I remember, oh gosh, I guess this would have been like 2018, 2019 when I was first seeing RTL loans, and this was on the diligence, secondary market side, and everybody, just like you said, people were underwriting RTLs and Excel spreadsheets. Like there was no system, right? And everybody did it. Everybody does RTLs a little bit different. It's not to build your point. It's like it's not just like an agency loan, or even like a fairly standard non-QM loan. You get into some of this business products, and it's highly specific from lender to lender. So yeah.
Yeah, it really does become that. So if you think about working with an investor, you're the business purpose lender in this case, right? So you have a non-QM division, of a BPL division, and you're working with your investor, the customer. And does that, and let's say Chris, right? So you've got 20 properties, PK, you've got 50 properties, right? We get to that level, like, where are you? And then based on how it's configured and set up, are you light, medium, heavy investor? How is the relationship? So we're not only looking at the data points from the investor, the guidelines, or a portfolio for that matter. There's other pieces that come into play, and that's why we're winning a lot of the business out there. So I'll go through. I'm sorry.
The qualitative.
Yes.
Well, it's like reading guidelines, right? Like, all right, well, here's the deal. It's like, oh wait, but you're in Colorado. Okay, hold on. Oh wait, you're using some gift funds on this from a sale of another property. Oh wait, what was that? And it's like we've talked with Andrew that everything in mortgage is like, it's just like this. Well, except or unless.
Exactly.
Well, yeah, and you think the interdependencies are like difficult on like overlays on agency or something like that. Again, when you start getting into some of this DSCR, RTL, fix and flip type stuff, it becomes even wackier the way that the interdependencies are in there. So I am only on for a few more minutes here before I have to drop because of the conference. But Bill, I know this is technically around technology, but I do want to tap a little bit into you are, we met each other somewhat recently, but you have my utmost respect in this space, and I would put you in a top 5 CROs in the space. So I do want to touch a little bit on sales, which again I know is a little bit different on this, but you from where I sit, you really are one of the masters in building really true solid relationships, right? I think one of the things you once said to me was like, I will never go ask anything of anyone until I can bring value to them, right? And it's something that's really stuck with me. But do you mind talking just a little bit about like your philosophy around sales, and maybe some of the nuggets that you've learned from your mentors over the year that have really kind of driven your thought process?
Yeah. Wow. What a great question. Thank you. That's humbling too. I appreciate that. I joke with everyone that I know in the industry that 26 years. I feel like a rookie sometimes. It's a grind, And the book Grit is I like that book, Grit. You have Atomic Habits, I think, in your office, right,
Yeah.
Andrew? So mentors, relationships. I go back to I have this is part of me, right? So right here, my uncle is one of my mentors. So 28 years ago, whenever it was, and he's a national sales trainer for National Life, the insurance company, to this day.
Oh, wow.
He's doing really well. And I think he and I are actually going to do an Ironman together next year. We'll see. We're aging. But anyway, right here, it says the secret of success of every man who's ever been successful lies in the fact that he formed the habits of doing things that failures don't like to do. So there seems the piece of grinding, like every day. I don't take anything for granted, but the mentors along the way, Larry Huff for a very short time, he was at DataTrack, if you guys didn't know this, before he started OB, and he had a really good idea to start OB. So I had some great mentors early on. One of those guys was Jack Hamrick, retired lieutenant colonel in the Air Force, dual master's degree. And we really did focus on taking it from selling to transactional selling to complex selling. And that's what really got me excited when I made the change to get into mortgage and mortgage technology specifically, because it's more than just a transactional sale when you're delivering enterprise loan origination systems, for example. And so early on, like in all my training from Northwestern and Sandler or Miller Hyman, by the way, is one of my favorites. The strategic, if you guys know the blue sheet, there's a blue sheet, the green sheet, the gold sheet, but the strategic analysis. So if you're going into Andrew, you're the CEO of a large company and you've got, 1,000 employees. What I try to do first in selling is I'm leading with a LoanPass product, but I want to find out who the decision committee is at your company. What makes people tick? And then what degree of influence do they have? So I really started transitioning through direction of mentors from a transactional to a complex sale. And really you're architecting the sale. And that's what, to me, it's still fun after all these years. I really enjoy doing that. I would think that as we talk about this, and I could probably go on for hours, but I won't, is like the principle of reaping what you sow. If we go back to I think everyone knows that term in one way or another, but it's the investment in yourself. It's the investment in your company, giving value before you ask for it, right? It's the interval process of the daily grind. It's the identity of the salesperson, right? And then increase, so those 4 eyes that you have on that principle of investment. So I guess to kind of round it out, this year has been a really interesting year. LoanPass, we're excited about our direction. But when the new year turned over, there's a new administration. We had tariffs, we have inflation, we have interest rates. And that was a theme of some of the conferences I was going to early in the year, where it felt like a lot of the lenders were tapping on the brakes, like AI is here. So you have all these things that are happening inside the industry and really all over. But it was the discussion I've had with CEOs where it's the status quo versus customer indecision. And there was a CEO that brought this to my attention. He really has me thinking about it to this day. And so I started diving deeper into indecision, than those factors of everything that's happening. I have it on one of my whiteboards. I'm surrounded by whiteboards, guys. So I have, it's the valuation problem. It's the lack of information. And I think a big one is the outcome uncertainty of that decision-making team at that large lender, for example, right? So again, sales cycles can be long, and we just keep grinding.
Yes, that can be long. Thank you so much for that, Bill. All right, I'm gonna bounce out. I gotta go speak, and I'll let you guys continue to talk about tech. All right. Thanks,
Good luck,
Bill. I
Andrew.
appreciate you.
Good to
Thanks,
see you,
guys.
Andrew. Thank you.
Well, Bill, now you're down to the boomers leaving, so half of I know PK was smiling over there whenever you were like, "You guys remember phone books?" And PK smiled because he knows I'm holding back I'm like, PK, and you're like, "Remember the '80s?" And PK's over there smiling. I'm like, "Who doesn't remember the '80s?" And then PK's like, you're over here saying like data track, and I'm sorry, PK's like Googling what is data track.
What's data track? I've so aged myself, haven't I? But I mean, so many good people in these companies, and I've been very fortunate and blessed to be surrounded by really smart people.
So were you over there when Rob was there?
Which Rob?
Rob Katz.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So sorry, I cut you off. You said you're working with a bunch of great people over at Data Track.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, just, the stops along the way in my career, I've tried to align myself with what I believe are leading edge, not cutting edge software, but leading edge, and like being categorically different is what I talk about a lot. And surrounded now at LoanPass with some really special people. I shared, some of the executives that are at the team, but I like to share this quick story about the culture of LoanPass at LoanPass. So Nashville, 2022, the annual convention. And so after 4 days of not sleeping and being exhausted, and the convention was really great, we held an all hands meeting. So we flew everyone in from around the country to spend 2 more days to talk about LoanPass. And it was a really good time. So we didn't go bowling. We didn't go throw axes. We didn't do anything like that, because over here, the 20-something people on staff, there's like 14 people that are really good, badass musicians. So we rented a recording studio for the afternoon and ended up recording a song. So everyone was involved. And it kind of throw me back to the 80s with the hair bands and all of that, my time. But fast forward to what we were doing. So it was a really good time. And then we finished it up with a barbecue in the second half of the day.
So what did you do with the 6 people on the side? Were they just tambourine? Here, I need you to go over here and just tap. So
give me the cowbell, right? I can do that. So I was one of the backup singers actually that day, and I play a little bit of guitar, but nowhere near some of the talent that we have on staff. And I mean, these guys and gals are in bands now. And so Derek Long, our COO, did the lyrics. Mike Lewis, great singer. I had no idea. Actually was lead. And then we had people, mixing it up from keyboards, bass, drums, guitars, and it was a real good time.
Wow. So did you do what was this? Did you take that song and incorporate it to LoanPass somehow? Is like your hold music? Like you used it on demo intros? Like I know they had to do some creative ways to use that.
Yeah. So we've been talking about it, how I talked a little bit about the organic growth and, word of mouth and building a strong foundation, which we've done. So we're holding it for the right time. It could be walk-up music at some point. It is not, it's not screaming guitars. It's more of I would say a jingle, but it's catchy. And at the right time, we're going to share it.
Okay. Well, yeah, whatever we can sign up for early access, let me know. I want to see. Is there video going with it too?
We got a lot of photos, right? So we got a collage that we could. We got AI, like we could probably make one in like a day. So
yeah. I think it's funny you mentioned something that I'd love for you to touch on more, which is you said the indecision, right? There's indecision.
That's what I was going to ask too.
Go ahead, PK.
Oh boy.
No, but that's what I was going to ask about too, because I was like, that sounds fascinating.
So start talking to all your friends in the industry that are in sales, that are selling technology. And so I have been all year, and I've got friends calling me. It's like, how do you deal with this? And back to my early days with my dad, like we did business on a handshake, and I bring that to the table to this day. But on the indecision piece, it's tricky, and I don't have all the answers for it. But back to my notes, like there's the valuation problem. There could be a lack of information and the outcome uncertainty. So the risk that a CIO or CTO has to make, right, that I'm going to go with this technology, that person's job is on the line. That could play into some of that outcome uncertainty. In the day and age where, I've been fortunate to the teams I've been part of, have delivered over 200 systems, many of those being enterprise LOS. There's safe plays out there. There's safe bets out there for lenders to make. And but do you kind of want to live on that edge a little bit in certain areas? And some do, for sure. And that's where you start thinking about indecision, but then it's also, again, going back to the complex deal of making sure you have the right influencers. Like, are they visionaries? Are they laggards? Are they pragmatists? Are they early or late majority buyers? So understanding that committee of 7, 9, 13 people it can be tricky. So I think when it comes to the divide, like indecision, customer indecision versus status quo, it's definitely an ongoing conversation.
Go ahead. Okay, I was going to say the valuation. Are you saying evaluation, like evaluating the product or service versus the status quo? Is that what you're referring to there?
Yeah, so ROI. Like if we pivot to return on investment, and
Got it. Okay.
we can run out the numbers, but is the ROI there? Is that valuation problem? What are the goals of that lender? Is it immediate, or is it long-term goals, and what we're trying to deliver and meet on?
So if like giving you a free platform here to talk to those decision makers that just so happen you may have influence to, any advice for maybe the other side? So for instance, I'm seeing when you say the word indecision, I almost feel like from my seat, I see a lot of fear. And it's not unwarranted that we are in a market of a lot of uncertainty. And so I think the indecision is almost like there's so much uncertainty, right? And it is also, I think, fear-based, and doing nothing is just a safe path. So any advice you would give to the people on the other side when evaluating LoanPass or Optimal Blue?
Yeah. And all the engines for that matter, because I've encouraged lenders to look at everything to make sure. We want to make sure, like I've stopped demos before, and it's like, no, I think you should go speak with this, this company right now. Like fear, what is it? False expectations appearing real, and all the acronyms that we throw out with FUD, and fear, uncertainty, and doubt, for sure. What we have done and what we are doing to address that specifically at LoanPass is trial accounts, trialability. So that we've been very successful with this. We don't do it with everyone. And but what we've done, you do the typical horse and pony, whether they qualifies or not, you go through the process. And what we like to do is we really treat this as an education track. So kind of, education leads to adoption, leads to production, an old saying from MERS. But with that is we'll set up a demo, we'll run them through it. We set up the test account. Now, it's not going to have all their investors and products and guidelines in it right away, but it gives them an idea. And it allows them to, and for us to earn trust. And so what we do with many lenders is we'll set up sessions like over 6 weeks, for example. Let's meet for 20 or 30 minutes, every other day, every other week. And let's go through the process. Like, let's first look at the LO experience. Then let's look at how underwriting would use this. Okay, from an administrative point of view, if you need to go in and add fields and rules, so that one of the things that we like to talk about is our configurability, speed to market, right? And, we'll show them how to make those changes and allow them to make the changes. So at the point where it comes to decision, or the final 1 or 2, we feel like we're starting to separate ourselves from our competition as we go through the process. I would say that we're not batting 1,000, but it is definitely up there. We have won the majority of those trials that we've run.
I think that volume is going to grow more. It's funny that we've always been a month-to-month company and free to try. And it's wild to me, and I'm sure you've done it too, but yours seems like it might have a little bit more of a drawn out implementation process. And that I feel like you have to also be careful with people's expectations, right? Because they're like, well, this has only got a few things. Like, LoanPass doesn't do this for me. It's like, remember, we're doing trial. And so that seems like it's got to be very, very carefully constructed trial process.
Yeah, and it is. And, so we break it down into sessions, like I shared. And like what happens from a vendor, I think we all know this, when you offer that trial, you feel like you're losing control of the sale. But at the same time, there's so many options. It's like it's the cereal aisle of technology now, where there's just so many choices, and which one do you pick? So kind of going through that customer indecision, taking that divide and trying to bridge that gap, if you will. The trialability sessions are proving really strong for us.
And I'm curious to know the data off the cuff. How often does it take more than 1 or 2 sessions? Like, let's say you've got 6 planned. I noticed that we needed 1 or 2, and they're like, yeah, we're going with you. Like they pretty much know. They just had to get that comfort level.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's across the board, so we have a few that after the first session, it's like, oh, great. We here's our questions. We answer it. But there's others, and you think about the complexity of our larger customers in that, they're doing 500,000 loans a month, and there's a lot of people that need to get in there. So it's kind of nice also where we don't feel like we're losing control, because we can actually go into the demo account to see who's logging in, how much time they're spending there. And it's at the same time, if you think about a sales pipeline, if you share this and all of a sudden no one's logging in, it's like, all right, take their temperature. Here's your opportunity. If now's not the time, great. But when is the best time for you guys based on priorities? Because as you know, man, it's getting to the top of that priority list can be a challenge.
Right. And then you're there, and it's a tough field to navigate. And from the lender side, I would advise people to please involve the people that would be part of that decision-making process, because there's nothing worse than being almost at the, we're right about here, and then someone says, hey, you know what? We're going to bring Janet's department in on this. She's actually kind of a pivotal role in this. And you're just like, where the fuck has she been the whole time? And like, and a lot of times people kind of feel a little upset that they weren't involved, and they kind of can sometimes be like, I don't want this.
A showstopper.
I haven't even seen it yet. My knee jerk is, well, build and involve me, so I don't really want to see his stuff.
For sure. Yeah, it's going back to that complex sale of mapping out influencers. It's really important because we're not trying to hurt anyone's feelings, but we want to make sure that everyone has a voice at the table, and so far so good.
How do you see the QM market growing? And then I'll ask that, and then PK, I think you've got something. But this QM market, I saw Jennifer McGinnis, who she just seems like a very knowledgeable person, speak just a few days ago, and I think we're at like 8%, 8 point something percent of loans originated last quarter were non-QM, up from like 2.
Yes, it's growing, and I don't have any stats. By the way, love Jennifer. She's fantastic. I worked with her back in 2013 through 15 on a project, and really, really smart. So what I've seen this year and what I've been sharing with people is the conferences that I've been to, it seems like there's 2 topics on everyone's tongue, and it's non-QM and AI. and so non-QM and AI. And there's a gentleman I've known for years. He's a president of a pretty good sized mortgage company out of California. And I saw him at the Western Secondary. And I said, so how you been? Like, what are you doing here? And he goes, I'm here to look into non-QM finally. And like, oh, good point, right? So what we've seen on the non-QM side is only growth. And so again, I don't have the exact numbers for you, but I saw something in a report last week, and I want to say, if it was 2024, it was around 70 billion. 2025 is projected to be a little bit over 80 billion, if those numbers sound right. So we're seeing some growth there, and like also, not that I'm trying to change the subject, but whether it's non-QM, business purpose lending, reverse, solar panel, auto, you name it. LoanPass can handle all of those different types of assets. But with reverse, we actually we have one lender that is able to price a reverse next to a forward side by side. So as our good friend Andrew is no longer here, and different generations we talk about, 14,000 people a day are turning 62 in the U.S. So as lenders look at non-QM, I think depending where rates go in the future, they drop a little bit. We have a number of reverse lenders that also use our pricing engine. And so there's areas for growth.
PK.
Yeah. Bill, I wanted to ask you about that second topic outside of non-QM, the AI one. Yeah. We always ask that to our guests here, but are you seeing use cases for AI either kind of in the pricing space, or are you having customers ask you about how AI works within your function, like your platform, or are they coming to you with use cases saying, hey, can you do this? And that's like a perfect use case for AI. Like, what are you seeing from your point of view?
Yeah. So LoanPass is a decision engine, not a suggestion engine, is what our CTO said the other day. And I got a kick out of what he said. So we have focused on on AI for the last 2 to 3 years, and we had a really cool project with CoreLogic, now Cotality. We were on the NBA stage 2 years in a row. They invited us in Philly and Denver, and we did presentations on what we were doing. And I definitely see AI being a part of everything going forward. What we're doing here at LoanPass is we are not pricing on AI, and that is not something we're doing. But it is a support arm. The AI is definitely a support. So you think about being able to go in and you run a scenario, and you've got either a review or rejected or a near miss, right? That LO can now, that end user can go in and ask a question with a chatbot style agentic AI and dive a little bit deeper. So I do see AI enhancing a lot of technology out there. My first mortgage product at OTX years ago was a Six Sigma project, and we were talking about how it took 25 years for the fax machine to become mainstream in the industry, and we ended up saving about $250,000 in paper through the Six Sigma project. In the past, the shiny objects, AI is not a shiny object in my opinion. It is here to stay. It is going to help us. It's making a lot of people nervous as well. But I think that another CEO said recently, like, there's going to be a cleansing process, and that cleansing process is a lot of hype. And we're going through that cleansing process now, and there's some real winners that are starting to surface, and we know who they are. So yeah, we use it as an enhancement, and one day at a time.
Yeah.
What's funny is all our company does and focus on is AI custom solutions, and then we've gotten a grant from Google, AWS.
Yep.
We've done a lot in the space, and it's funny the amount of bullshit, let's just say, that I see. And I was on the stage in New England last week, and I know this PK's already heard this story a lot, so he's like, say it again, Mace. But I actually was on a call with someone, and they were talking about asking for help with AI, and PK also spoke with that person. And I think it was within a matter of days, I saw she was on LinkedIn, or this person was going to be on a panel about AI, and speaking from a spot of expertise. And so it is kind of like it is I think an overstated what AI can do now, and it's understated for what it's going to do 5-10 years from now.
Yeah. I'd say we have people dedicated to it. We're listening to our clients. We're talking to our clients. We go through health checks with them all the time. And it's whole part of that really nice feature of being an organic growth company. We are really good. Like our staff, they're superheroes at listening. And so we want to make sure that when we do deliver it, it's what they're looking for.
So, would you say it's harder to get a big client to move to you, or a small up and coming company to move to you?
It's changing. So I love talking about this, because when you think about risk reward, customer indecision, and all of that play into it, lining yourself up as a newer software provider, I was specifically looking for visionaries and early majority thinkers. When we were going out the last couple of years, and we're bringing on, great year last year. With 24 new customers last year. We're over 50 now. We acquired PMI Ray Pro. So you have BestX MI, and some of the logos that Nomi Smith, who's on my team, they brought over. So it's actually over 60 customers. So the logos that we're now winning are some of the largest in the industry. I can speak confidently on it. 3 years ago, it was really tough. Like, you have to find that company and work with them. But now, through the grapevine in the industry, the word's getting out. And we have the largest business purpose lender in the industry on our system. We have one of the largest non-QM correspondents out there on our system now. So the larger logos are coming to us. The word's getting out. And so I'm looking forward to the rest of this year. Things are a lot of discussions are starting to heat up going into the MBA annual. Decisions are going to be made this year. And the technical debt that all software companies have, I believe we don't have as much as some of the pioneers, right? If you think about, and I'm not an engineer, right? If you think about their architecture, we're designing the Rust programming language, and it's a no-code, low-code delivery. So we can literally go in and make changes and do all of that. So the lenders that are looking to get into non-QM, are looking to get into DSCR and RTL, want to do reverse, we can really help them get there faster.
So, well, it's funny. My next question was going to be lenders that are looking to move into non-QM and the DSCR and business purpose loans. What advice would you have to them other than the obvious contact LoanPass?
Yeah.
You know, the guy at secondary who came to you and said, "I'm looking at non-QM." Obviously, you said, "All right, look at LoanPass." And
yeah. So I'm gonna have to put my hat on this one. So if I put myself in the shoes of a lender, there's a lot of things that go into standing up a new product. Obviously, you want to do market studies. You want to make sure your sales staff is trained. What happens if you have to buy it back if you're servicing it? So there's a lot of regulatory operations, compliance, servicing, the ROCKS acronym that I refer to, that you have to have lined up, which lenders are great at doing. Then the technology aspect. So if you're going to go out there and you want to price that new product out, like, does your current software allow you to do it? And some of the pioneers, they do an all right job, in my opinion, but if it's an I-10 or a foreign national, do they have to enter a number 2 or 12 in a field, and that's a trigger that it is that? Or do you start asking specific questions around that loan product and putting that borrower into the best product? And that's where we come into play. So we can help with speed to market when it comes to that. And then I would add that even some of the leading loan origination systems that are out there that do conventional agency really well are looking into diving deeper into non-QM. They're looking into business purpose lending now. We've already gone there. So we feel like we've got a real good head start going down that runway.
Fascinating. Bill, I just had an idea while you were talking there. So before we built Loanscape, we had this website called findwholesalelenders.com, and on there we had this scenario desk kind of like form field, and it'd basically be a handful of form fields and then like a text box where they would just like fill it up with like as much information as possible about the scenario. I almost imagine like, for a newer loan officer, maybe someone who's not as delved in on, what products, what fields to select, all those kind of things. So like you could kind of have something like that where a scenario is plugged in, and then, some AI engine is asking further questions to maybe collect all the right data, plug all of that data into the right fields within LoanPass, and then show them all the right information. So it could be almost like a pre-step. Maybe that's like a area or use case for AI in your platform or product.
Yeah, absolutely. It's when we look at that and data flow, our APIs, it's a full stack open API. So when a customer creates a new configured field, it's dropped right into their API stack. So whether it's CRM, point of sale, another system with data is flowing back and forth, we've got that addressed for sure. We want to make it seamless. We want to make it a seamless experience. We want to automate systems where we can. And that really does help, I think, enhance the skills of the end users and how, they are portrayed to their borrowers.
Yeah. Okay, so you said your CTO made that good comment of we're not we do loan decisioning, not loan suggesting. Is that?
Yeah, he said something like yesterday. He goes, "We're not a suggestion engine, we're a decision engine." Okay. And he's a sharp guy.
All right. So with that being said, how far down the funnel? I mean, people listening right now are like, are they doing decisions? Does that mean that I have underwriting approval? Like, can you kind of ask that question? It's like, hey, hold on, you said it's a loan decision. Can you talk about it?
Yeah. All right. Let's do it. So how I shared with you guys that I went to the MBA Tech in 2022 and I ran into LoanPass because I thought they were leading edge. I didn't want to get involved with a company like Tim Wynn of Be Smart. I love the guy. He talks about a blue ocean strategy or the bloody red ocean. Like you jump into the bloody red ocean as a PPE. There's a lot of providers out there. So where then do we start to create our categorically different blue ocean strategy? So to the prompt, when I was talking to them, we have a foundation of a rules-based decisioning engine that can handle any asset class, right? So I've said that a few times over now. Now we're taking in data intake. All right, so open APIs, working with other systems, credit data, the credit report, ingesting that. So to answer your question, Chris, yeah, we can do that right now. We can actually take all that data, ingest a credit report, and have a preliminary approval declination based on portfolio, non-QM. So not to be confused, we're not trying to be DU or LP. And but absolutely on the portfolio and non-QM side of things, we can start to do that. So where this is going, it's very exciting. We're working with a few of our clients. They're helping us through the process. Again, our superpower is listening to our clients. So then you start a decision output that I'm talking about. And then you have exception management, audit management, all that good stuff, so that you really do, for the non-QM world, and here is like one takeaway, is if you can run pricing and AUS at the same time on a non-QM loan, one of our customers said that's the sizzle on the steak, because a lot of the vendors out there now are trying to kind of replicate DU or LP in a non-QM world, and it just doesn't work that way. So since we have all the foundational work in place of the decisioning engine and some of this new functionality that we're bringing in, we literally can run pricing and AUS at the same time. So benefit, downstream benefit, ROI is confidence in investor pricing. Brokers are going to feel great about it. The wholesale lender is going to feel great about it in a few examples.
Well, I would say the next thing I'm going to say, you're going to be like, damn it, like everybody says this. Like, well, I think you say the sizzle on the steak is whenever you start saying, and we rep and warrant, and then you guys are going to take over the world.
No, I'm not saying that right now.
Okay, so we have our current guest ask the guest for next week a question, and we didn't have your question prepped this week because we were supposed to have PK actually and Evan on a call.
Last episode.
Yes, on the last episode. And so the guest next week is Dan Green from homebuyer.com. Bill, what question would you like us to ask him?
Okay, Dan. I don't know if I know Dan, but so I took a few notes here, so I'm going to go off my notes. So as more online buyers rely on online tools, right, for education and pre-qual, what do you think is the next big shift in how tech will guide people from browsing to actually closing online? And then how will lenders and agents prepare for that?
Wow. I mean, I think that's the best question for next week.
Yeah. And I thought about that question, and thanks for the prompt, but I was involved with eOriginal, which is now Wolters Kluwer, and eNotes in vaults back around 17 through 20. It was a big push, and push button get mortgage type stuff. But loan officers are still involved. They're still going to be involved, in my opinion. They're not going away. AI is going to make them better. But yeah, if Dan speaks to that, good stuff.
All right. Well, I think that brings us to the end. Let's just close with something not mortgage, since we have 2 minutes. You mentioned you might be doing another Ironman.
Yes.
Okay. What's the might? Like, what's the decisioning? We're going to make a decision right here on this show.
Yeah.
No suggestions.
All right. So
Yoda's coming out.
I'm a relationship guy. My uncle, who is one of my mentors, and I read that piece that he shared this with me 30 years ago. He is training. He's in his 60s, and he's training to do a half Ironman. And I have had the good fortune and privilege of not only racing and competing and doing all that, but I've helped close to a dozen people finish Ironman events. So I've had more rewards from watching people drop 50 or 60 pounds, get healthy, change their life, and do all of that. So I saw him in the airport up in Charlotte a couple weeks ago, and he goes, Billy, he says, you got to do one with me. And I just couldn't say no. And so we're going to do one together sometime in 2026. We're going to start off with a half. And I'm just the type of person, it's like, if I'm going to do a half, I'm going to do a full. That'll be my 5th full. And then at that point, I may retire, but trying to stay young and healthy and keep things moving. And that's the trick.
Well, I love it. Now you've given me inspiration to A, look up what a half marathon is, and B, see if that's even something I could do. That's one of my big takeaways.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you very much for your
I
time,
feel like
Bill.
I'm not living up to my potential after hearing that.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Bill.